Do, 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 do. All right. Do, 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 do. All right. Do, 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 do. All right, what is going on, you beautiful people? I think we are live on all of the fronts. Very exciting as always. Let me just get things kind of organized here. Perfect. Awesome. All right, welcome back, everybody. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. We are working our way through the week, which is exciting as always. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about protein and all the things that protein is important for and why we need to consume enough of it, particularly if we are trying to lose weight of any kind. If there was one macronutrient that not nearly enough people consume, I would even just say on a regular day-to-day basis, it's definitely protein. We have a very strong affinity for carbohydrates, fats. They are delicious. They are awesome. But protein really is kind of the king of the macronutrients in terms of all of the great things that it does for our body and for all of the things that it can be used in our body to do. So a couple of things just in general as to why we want to get enough protein in. First and foremost, protein is, it's the king of the macronutrients. So it literally can be converted into carbohydrates. It can be converted into fats. Your body can utilize protein for a multitude of different things in order to sustain all of your various cellular functions and do the necessary things that your body needs to do throughout the day-to-day. Protein is important for a number of enzymatic processes, so running everything from like our metabolism to digestion to you name it, protein is involved and having a part in helping to regulate and mitigate all of those things. It's also the fundamental building block of our muscles. The more muscle you have, the healthier you're going to be. Like that's just, there's so much evidence around that and showing that if you can build a good base of muscle mass and such like that, you can really have substantial improvements on your general health, well-being, and all the various things in between. So definitely those are kind of some of the key components there in that aspect. And then as well, we'd be looking at things from immune function to, bone health, the list goes on and on. I could just talk about all day long about the great many benefits that is protein. Now, when it comes to weight loss and why it's so important, one of the big parts of it is the fact that it helps us to preserve our lean muscle tissue. So regardless of, how, perfect your diet is and your activity and all that sort of thing, you are going to lose some amount of lean muscle tissue when you lose weight. The more weight that you lose, the more lean body mass you're potentially going to lose. And if you're not consuming enough protein, if you're not doing some other things on top of that, you're going to lose a substantial amount of muscle, and the balance of muscle to fat that you're going to be losing is going to get really thrown off, which the scale will go down, which is something that people get really obsessed about. But if you're dropping a whole bunch of muscle mass, we're kind of negating some aspects and components of things. And so very important to make sure you're consuming enough protein in order to substantiate and feed your muscles so that they can be preserved. And ultimately, that's going to help you to not only be healthier, but also when you reach your goal weight or what have you, the more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolic rate is going to be. And the higher your metabolic rate is going to be, the easier it is going to be for you to ultimately maintain your weight. All all big winning things there, right? The next big thing that a high protein diet will help you with is that it also helps with things like satiety. So protein takes the most amount of energy to break down, to digest, and to use up. And so it keeps us fuller for longer. It also has some effects in terms of some of the appetite regulatory hormones in our body, and it can help to mitigate and manage those so that we have a greater satiation and feeling like, hey, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore, I'm good to go on the amount of calories and food that I'm consuming. And so it really helps with that piece of things, and just helping you to feel fuller throughout the day and not as hungry and wanting and craving and all that sort of thing. So we've got preserving muscle tissue, we've got mitigating and managing cravings, we've got I guess the other big things would just be drawing a blank right now. In terms of your targets and stuff like that, we can kind of chat about that. So what we're looking at for our targets, the absolute bare minimum amount of protein that you should be consuming and taking in a day is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, or 0.36 grams per pound of body weight. If you are below that, you're essentially malnourished in terms of protein. What that's going to do is that's going to drive your appetite regulatory hormones through the roof. And then you're going to get a massive increase in your cravings and your hunger, your drive for food. All of these things are going to kind of go off the chart on you. And yeah, it's going to be that much harder not to, or to manage your weight, because your cravings, drive for food, and things like that are all going to be ramped way up. Even if you aren't, maybe you're pretty close to your maintenance level of calories. If you're not consuming enough protein, your body is going to take that as a signal that it needs to get you to overeat and overconsume, because it needs that macronutrient. It's not able to function. It's not able to preserve the muscle tissue, general body functions, and that sort of thing. And so it's going to drive and push you to go and eat and consume more food. So very, very important to make sure you're getting at least that as your bare minimum. In reality, we want to be probably getting anywhere from about 0.8 grams to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, depending on how much you exercise and stuff like that. If you're doing more heavy exertion and stuff, you want to be much more at the higher level of it. Even if you find you are struggling with managing your appetite and such, what you need to do is looking at how you can better regulate and better mitigate that. And that higher level can help you managing satiety, appetite, and all those beautiful things right there. So that's kind of your general range. Overall, in terms of safety and stuff, there is no major concerns or issues. We've done trials and stuff like that have shown, even with very high levels of protein intake, like you would have to consume nothing but protein all day long. Even at those high levels, those levels are safe for your kidneys. They don't cause any issues, no concerns. And in fact, there's actually a little bit of evidence that's kind of starting to come out that when people have renal failure and stuff like that, we recommend that they reduce their protein intake. And what actually the data is kind of starting to show is that low protein diet, when your kidneys are failing and such, is it might actually be causing harm. And so looking at, there's a lot of kind of research and literature that's kind of ongoing and debate in terms of renal function and whether your protein intake should be higher or not. Really, you should follow with your doctor and what they have to say. But even then, it's kind of maybe starting to show that a higher protein diet on all the different spectrums might not necessarily be a bad thing for a vast majority of people. But for people who are healthy, have normal functioning kidneys and stuff like that, no issues or concerns in terms of consuming protein. And most people would struggle to reach the very high levels of it and stuff like that. So that's kind of a bit of the breakdown on protein and such. Outside of that, just consume enough. Looking at your animal sources are a really, really great place to start. So chicken, beef, those all can be good sources. Obviously, mitigating a little bit on your red meat consumption, not going too crazy with it or anything. Fish is Also probably the other really, really good one, because you're also getting a good source of fats and omega fats and stuff like that. They're all going to be good and healthy. And then we're looking at more the vegan type options, which would be lentils, beans, chickpeas, those sorts of things. So finding a way to kind of incorporate and build those into your diet, all really great and awesome ways to help you to get your protein in, and using a combination of them. So having like some chicken and having a salad or something that has chickpeas or lentils or whatever, all those things can kind of come together. Further, you want to look at maybe having your protein throughout the day in smaller, more frequent meals. And that's really going to help you to get enough protein in throughout the day, because consuming higher amounts of protein, it's hard and challenging at first. It's totally doable, but it definitely takes some work and practice and planning in order to get those protein intakes up and stuff. But yeah, start slow, build yourself up, and yeah, you can definitely get some good old benefits out of it. So that's kind of the general gist and rundown on it. Yeah, we'll kind of take questions, comments. It might be kind of a short one today. Yeah, but we'll see. If there's questions or anything like that, we'll take those and see where it's at. Oh, we've got little Lloyd Christmas here. It's time to let it go, man. Shave it off. And of course, he's a dude that is not wearing a shirt in his profile picture. Oh, good for him. Oh, we got a Jesus loves you. Awesome. That's exciting. Oh. Sweet deal. So yeah, if you are using Ozempic, Saxenda, what have you, definitely do also recommend making sure that protein intake is up. It's going to definitely be a little bit more challenging with that drug on board, just because you're not going to want to consume as much or what have you. But yeah, again, start slow, build it up, and it will definitely make it down the road, helping out a lot more in terms of future weight loss and maintaining that weight loss. Karen. Haley, when you eat over your calories, how fast would you gain weight? It's going to vary person to person. I mean, and it's going to vary person to person how fast you'll gain weight, and it's going to depend how much calories you're over consuming. If you're like just 100 calories a day, well, the gain is going to be very slowly over time, right? But if you're consuming 2,000 calories over every single day, well, then the gain is going to be a lot quicker. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that we all have, we talk a lot about metabolic adaptation going the other way when we lose weight, but there's also metabolic adaptations that can happen when we increase our calorie intake as well. So if you were to say, go anywhere from 200 to 500 calories over what your maintenance level is, what can ultimately happen there is your body will start to metabolically adapt and become less fuel efficient, if you will. So it'll throw off more energy as heat in order to try and bring that, to make sure that you don't gain weight with that higher amount of calories. Now, obviously, there's going to be a certain threshold that's going to happen and occur at and what have you, but your body can metabolically adapt up. And again, how much your body metabolically adapts the other way is going to vary person to person, and that'll affect how much you gain weight as well. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of factors there. It's going to be very individualized and yeah, really ultimately tough to say. Most people over the course of the year in their lives and stuff, it's kind of 100 calories extra a day here and there over their maintenance. I mean, they have bouts where they consume a large amount of calories all at one time, obviously, but if we average it out over 365 days a year, it's a small amount of calories over your maintenance over the course of a year. And so there's this slow creeping weight gain that occurs year to year to year to year. How much protein for a standard person? Again, that's going to vary person to person. So I always recommend higher the better. Your absolute minimum, like I said, if you were to take your body weight, so if it's 100 pounds and you were to times that by 0.36, that's going to give you 36 grams. If you're 100 pounds, would be your absolute minimum. In reality, you would want more than that, because that minimum is just to prevent malnourishment. And so, you'd really want to be looking at maybe that 1 gram per pound of body weight, which would be about 100 grams. So if it's a 100-pound person, 36 is your minimum, 1 gram per pound of body weight would be 100. So if you're kind of ballparking 70, 80, and you're not doing any physical activity or anything, that would probably be a pretty good amount for a 100-pound person. But whatever your protein intake and stuff is, taking that, calculating it, and hopefully that can give you kind of an idea of what yours should be at. Elder Justice, if I am on Mounjaro, can I use protein shake / powder because I'm not wanting to consume anything? Yeah, so can you use protein shakes or protein powders and stuff like that, whether you're on Mounjaro? Even if you're not on Mounjaro, yeah, you can definitely use those shakes and stuff like that. The medications, like I said, can definitely make it more challenging to get, a chicken breast in or what have you. But if you're needing to supplement with shakes and stuff, that's going to be a great alternative, especially in the early days when maybe you're on the medication and you're dealing with a lot of the GI side effects. As those start to subside and stuff for you, start trying to incorporate more solid foods. But yeah, having protein shakes and protein bars, protein cookies, protein everything. If you want to have those things to kind of supplement and get your protein intake up, definitely recommend it, and can be beneficial in just your overall process and making sure you're properly nourishing your body. Like I have a protein shake every day just because it's quick and easy. It definitely doesn't fill me up as much, but it keeps things quick and easy when I'm on the go and working and whatever else, and definitely something that everybody can incorporate if they'd like to. And Haley, so if you ate too much yesterday, would I see weight gain today, tomorrow? So like if you overate today, I mean, there's so many different variable factors and stuff that are going to come into play. So if you are been eating a regular amount of food and then you ate a whole bunch of food one day, or like today, for example, yeah, tomorrow you're going to see an increase on the number in the scale. But is it fat? Well, no, it's you ate more food, so you're going to have more poop. If you ate more food and it's more carbohydrate based or something that maybe you're not used to eating or something like that, or maybe it irritated your bowels or whatever, yeah, you're going to be holding some water and stuff. But the chances of it being fat, like the amount of food you would need to consume to gain 1 pound of fat is like it's about, well, roughly about 3,500 calories worth of food is what you would need to consume above your maintenance or what your body burns in that day in order to gain a pound of fat. And like, yeah, that's a real effing challenge. So yeah, probably not. It's going to be food, or it's going to be poop and water, more or less. Wendy, is that protein goal based on goal weight or current weight? So you can really kind of go back and forth depending on how much you need to lose, for example. So I always like to kind of put it in perspective. So if you're, say, 200 pounds right now and you wanted to get to 150 pounds, 150 grams of protein would be a good amount. If you could get it up closer to that 200, awesome, but that's a lot of protein and it's probably going to be quite challenging, but more ultimately the better. So I would aim closer to that 200 grams, like that 1 gram per pound of body weight if you're 200 and under. If we're getting into, say, 300-400 pounds that you're currently sitting at, and say you have 100 or 200 pounds that you need to lose in fat mass, then I would take into account more of your goal weight that you're looking for. Because say if you're 400 pounds, unless you're like the mountain off the Game of Thrones or something like that, 400 grams of protein is going to be an astronomical amount of protein, and you're just not going to like life at all. But aiming for about 200 grams of protein, yeah, totally reasonable in that respect of things. So it really kind of depends on your overall body weight and stuff, and kind of where you're currently starting and such. But the more protein in you can get, the better. But if you have a goal weight in mind compared to your current weight, taking that and timesing by 1 can be nice, easy, and simple for you. So yeah, kind of going back and forth in that respect. For Anne, if our bodies cannot store protein, how much protein can our bodies use at once? All right, great question, Anne. So if our bodies can't store protein, how much protein can our bodies use at once? So there's a common misconception that your body can only absorb 30 grams of protein at a given time. It's not quite correct. And what people are getting wrong is like they're looking at the GI tract and then what your body can maybe utilize or top out at in terms of a process that we call protein synthesis or muscle protein synthesis. So basically the process of muscle building. So if you were to sit down and have a meal and you consumed 50 grams of protein in that meal right now, your body would absorb all 50 grams of protein. When it comes to the muscle protein synthesis, your body, depending on how much you work out, whether you just worked out, and all those sorts of things are going to kind of play into it. But generally, your body is only going to utilize about 30, maybe 40 grams of that 50 grams of protein is going to go into the process of muscle protein synthesis and maximize that effect in order to build as much muscle tissue as possible. The other 10 grams that you absorb probably is just going to get wasted, or depending on where your body's at, if you're in a calorie deficit, it's going to get converted to other sources of fuel and such like that. If you're in a calorie surplus, it might get converted to fat. So it'll all kind of depend on what your body ultimately needs at that point. But your body in a given meal can absorb all of that protein. How much of that protein is actually going to be used for muscle protein synthesis tends to top out at 30 grams for sure is ideal. Getting to 30 to 40, we start to kind of get a diminishing return, but that's kind of where we peak out at. So a lot of athletes, weightlifters, and people who are generally doing more resistance training, trying to get more of that protein in, especially in the 30 to 40 grams, is going to maximize the healing and repairing of their muscles and tissues, allowing for that muscle protein synthesis, and ultimately, allow their body to kind of heal up and get stronger and such like that. And generally, most people, like myself included, I tend to overshoot on my protein of what I probably need. So I consume about 225 grams of protein a day right now. My current body weight is about 200 pounds. And so I overshoot on my amount of protein, because what that ultimately allows me to do is to have plenty of amino acids and protein around, so that anytime my body is like, hey, let's do some muscle building, it has the nutrients there. It's not having to worry about whether there's enough protein or amino acids that are around and stuff. So how much is absorbed, how much is used, that's kind of the misconception there. Your body can definitely absorb it all. And depending where your body's at, it's going to use what it can for the muscle protein synthesis, and everything else will be either burned as energy or converted to fat or something like that. So hope that helps. Julia, hi Dan, hi Julia. Karen on TikTok, is 62 pounds of weight loss on Ozempic pretty good? I've been on 1 milligram for almost a year. I mean, there's really no saying what is good, what is not good. I mean, it depends on what your own health goals and stuff like that are. If 60 pounds is what you wanted to lose, awesome, fantastic. If your goal was to only lose 10 pounds, well, you've greatly exceeded it. And, are we running into other issues? If your goal is to lose 100 pounds, okay, well, you're doing pretty good and you're over halfway there. So it all depends on what exactly you're kind of striving for and looking for and stuff. Generally in the studies, what they found is that people were losing about, well, 1/3 of people lost 15% from their baseline body weight. So if you're at, 15% from your baseline, cool, you're kind of reaching what they achieved in the study. If you're beyond that, you're doing even better. So yeah, hope that kind of helps. All right, and so Anne on YouTube, is eating real food better than using protein powder? Yes, technically. So anytime you can consume real whole foods, you're going to get better health outcomes because the real whole foods will have other nutrients. It has the complete protein picture, especially if it's like animal protein sources and such like that. So chicken breast, if I had the choice, getting 30 grams of protein from a chicken breast is going to be better than 30 grams of protein from a shake. It's not to say that the shake is bad. It's just that the chicken breast is going to have more nutrients. It's going to be more filling because there's just more density and components there and stuff like that. And the protein's in more of a food matrix and such. But if you're in a pinch or whatever like that, yeah, a shake is going to be perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, it really doesn't, it's not to say that one is good or bad or anything. It's just kind of whatever's working for you at the given time, but trying to get more of your nutrients from whole food sources is always going to be better. So yeah, hope that helps that. Alberta girl, has the price of Ozempic come down? Do you think insurance, i.e. Blue Cross, will ever cover it? As far as I know, the price hasn't come down at this point in time. Probably won't see a decrease. I think Ozempic comes off patent, I want to say like 2028 or like 2030, something in there. So we probably won't see a price decrease until that point, unless there is, Mount Gero might push it down, but I'm doubtful. So we probably won't see a price decrease. Ozempic right now by Blue Cross, and assuming Alberta girl, you're also in Alberta. So Alberta Blue Cross will currently cover Ozempic if you have diabetes and you've been on metformin and gliclazide. So that's currently the coverage for it. When Wegovy comes to market, they might, but really tough to say. No problem, Anne. My pleasure. Michael, you overprocess your core. I have no idea what that. I'm assuming all these kids, they must be like, is it like all just Gen Z kids? I'm very concerned about that generation. But anywho. Mia, can Ozempic cause seizures? Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, there is no physiological link or anything. Nothing that I've ever come across saying that Ozempic can cause seizures. Maybe like indirectly it could if you were on, say, insulin and other drugs to control your blood sugars and you went on Ozempic and you had a super severe low because of combination of medications and not getting proper med adjustment. A super severe low could lead to seizures, but it's not the Ozempic directly causing it. It's because of a really, really low blood sugar, but the Ozempic could potentially contribute to it if you weren't being properly medically managed and stuff. But just going on the drug and that's all you're on, is it on seizures? No. Natalia, hello, Natalia. Shrimp. On Ozempic for 4 weeks, 0.25, not hungry at all, very nauseous. Feel like hypoglycemic at times. Yeah, so if you're feeling hypoglycemic when you're on these medications, pretty good indication that you probably just need to eat and consume more food. A lot of people will forget to eat. Some people who have been trying and struggling with their weight all their life, these drugs can be like a dream come true in that it suddenly shuts off all ability to eat. And they love that. And so they avoid food like the plague, which is very, very dangerous because you still need food to function and stuff. And if you go long enough without food, yeah, you're going to get hangry. Yeah, you're going to have your blood sugars go low. So making sure you're consuming small, consistent meals throughout the day to properly nourish your body, because if you're not, ultimately on the flip side, you're just going to be doing more harm, and the number on the scale might be going down, but yeah, not at the expense of your health. So looking at it and yeah, definitely kind of mitigating it. So as a 200-pound woman, should I be eating 200 grams of protein? Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be a target that you aim for. And certainly something to kind of work your way up to. And again, it depends on other factors of, like, you know, if you're doing any kind of resistance training or anything. So if you're more active and building on your activity, 100%, 200 grams of protein is definitely what I would aim for. Are you going to hit it every day? Probably not. But if you're eating 200 grams of protein a day, and you're creating a calorie deficit and trying to lose weight, I can tell you, you are going to be very full and not have any cravings or hunger or anything like that. So can be very, very, very beneficial in that regard. And if you are weight training and stuff like that, it's going to help you to build lean muscle tissue and maybe get the beautiful kind of effect if you're dialing it in well enough that you can actually gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. So yeah, lots of benefits, but yeah, should be kind of a target to potentially look at, and you can adjust as your weight comes down. So Natalia, thanks. You're welcome. True North, is this raw or cooked protein in weight? So good question. So when we're looking at protein intake and how to kind of assess it, again, this is going to depend kind of food to food and stuff like that. But if you say take like 100 grams of cooked chicken breast, 100 grams of cooked chicken breast is going to have about 30 grams of protein in it. Okay. Uncooked, it'll depend on the chicken breast and stuff like that, but it could be anywhere from 130 grams to 140 grams of chicken or so. Again, depends on the chicken, but if you were to take a raw chicken breast and it's about 130 grams, when you cook it, it's going to end up being about 140 grams. And that both of those are going to have about 30 grams of protein in it. So chicken, turkey, pork, beef, all those sorts of things are a lot easier kind of getting their cooked weight, because then, you know, after the water and fat and stuff like that has gone off, you have a good idea of how much actual meat is there and being able to figure out what your protein within that meat is going to be. So that's kind of my preferred way to go about it. But when I'm looking at things like, say, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lentils, beans, what have you, really those ones, I mean, Greek yogurt, you could cook it, I guess, but just whatever you put in your bowl for Greek yogurt, you can get an estimation of what the protein amount is going to be. Beans and lentils, if you're cooking and preparing those in some kind of way, you're kind of splitting hairs between whether it's cooked or raw. They're going to have about pretty similar in terms of the overall total weight, and therefore they're going to have the same amount of protein. So yeah, I wouldn't get too caught up on those guys, but when it comes to meats, I generally don't go with cooked. Eggs and egg whites, things like that, I will use raw and versus cooked. But yeah, that's kind of those aspects. Good question. Nikki, I had a vertical band gastroplasty back in 1998. I also have Hashimoto's and can't lose weight. I'm on Wellbutrin and naltrexone. Even that's not working. Help. So Nikki, I mean, the first thing would be looking at how much you're actually eating in a day to day. So counting your calories, tracking in some kind of way. Fundamentally, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. So just making sure and confirming what you're eating and consuming and stuff like that. And then I would be looking at optimizing your dietary patterns, so getting your protein intake up, and then also looking at what your activity levels are, and yeah, start adding in some resistance training and stuff like that. And yeah, those will be the things to be working toward and striving for. Stacy, I gained 24 pounds in 10 days in fluid, now restricted to 1.5 liters a day, almost impossible to exercise without being constantly thirsty. Any advice? I mean, that's really, really tough to say. I mean, I would do what you can, and, you know, in terms of kind of just easing off on your activity, or not like the exercise itself, like if you're going to the gym and lifting weights and stuff, it might be an aspect where you kind of reduce on that component and looking more just at general walking throughout the day, and kind of doing your best to just moisten your mouth as much as you can, and kind of going about it in that sense to make sure you're kind of reducing your fluid intake. It also depends on, you know, what the reason for the fluid gain was, whether it was like issues with kidneys, liver, or what have you. All of those things need to be taken into account. And yeah, so I would just kind of do what you can, continue to moisten your mouth and stuff, and yeah, working with the fluid restrictions and stuff that the best you can. I know it's definitely not easy. When I prep for my bodybuilding competition, my last couple of days, I had to like adjust my fluid intake, and working out and not being able to drink water, when you're used to putting back tons and tons of water, sucks. Like, it really sucks. So yeah. Nikki, I showed my doctor your video because I can't afford Contrave or Ozempic. Sweet, we're getting it out there. Alberta girl, thank you. My pleasure. Jackie, what are your thoughts on Ozempic and Saxenda? Yeah, both good and effective drugs. Depends on you and what ultimately works for you and stuff like that. I've got tons and tons of videos on both of them. So yeah, they're both good and safe drugs. Just me. Ozempic has a lot of side effects. I'm on it, coming off of it. Yeah, unfortunately, some people do get a lot of side effects with some of these medications, and they ultimately just can't tolerate it. And yeah, but there's other options and stuff that we can certainly look at. Jackie, I'm on Saxenda and have lost 32 pounds. Awesome. Sounds like it's working for you. Yeah, so just keep it up with, you know, dialing in your nutrition and stuff, lifting weights, resistance training, activity, and lots of protein. And yeah, those can be two things that can certainly help you on your overall weight management journey. So that is that. All right, I think that's all the questions we're going to get tonight. So thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday, and I cannot remember for the life of me what we're talking about next Wednesday, but it'll be something drug or dietary pattern, something. I don't really know, but we'll be back every Wednesday at this time, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We do a live. If you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, you can go there and you can see all my previous lives. They're all uploaded and everything like that. As well, you can check out all the various other videos and stuff that I've got the info on. So at the official Dr. Dan is the handles. And if you want a calculator to use to calculate your protein intake, you can check out my website, healthevolve.co/TDEE calculator, and it'll give you a calculator. Go through it, whether you're losing weight, maintaining your weight, or want to gain weight. It'll tell you how many calories to eat based on all of your stats and how much protein to eat. So hope that helps everybody. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday.